Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I am a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on April 3rd, 2023 at approximately 4:24 p.m. PST. Now, I've returned to this world for one primary purpose, and that is to remind people that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. I bill myself as a spiritual guide because the tools I offer are the exact same tools I personally use in my day-to-day life. And the philosophies I talk about, the philosophies of life I talk about, are the ones I personally live by. So this isn't a question of, here's a couple of ideas that you can do and maybe get ahead. This is what has turned my life completely around from a complete shambles. And let's face it, I'm not perfect. But I have gone through a fair chunk. Part of what I bring to the table, quite frankly, is 59 years, almost 60 years of stupid maneuvers. Now, this does not necessarily mean I'm perfect. Matter of fact, it quite literally says the other. But what it does mean is if I can convey to you some of the stupid moves I've pulled, maybe you can avoid doing them yourself. Okay, it's worth a shot anyway. Best rule of thumb, the first rule of thumb really from that end, is if you're aiming to do something, talk to somebody that has done it successfully. I did never talk to my father about how to become a millionaire because he never was one. Okay, this does not mean he did not do well for himself. Now, before I go any further, let's get onto the rack here. Well, that sounds bad. We have Adam in here with the gold. Okay, and absolutely, Adam, just remember, you're on a long haul here. Pay more attention to the road than you do to the radio. Yeah, I know you know that already. Henry is in here with the silver, and Joe's just come in with the bronze. So, welcome aboard, guys. I'm glad you could join me. Glad you could join us, because I'll tell you, the support that I see going on in this chat room is absolutely remarkable. And it's this kind of energy I would love to see people turn around and take out into the world around us. Now, we're still sitting at 478 subscribers. And I know the subscribers don't mean a whole lot. All it does is give me a quantifiable thing that tells me how close I am to actually getting a paycheck out of YouTube. At least assuming what I've been told is actually accurate. My luck with corporations has never been something to write nice things about. Okay, it just hasn't. Now, I could certainly give you all sorts of names of different companies I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole anymore. But we're not going there. Emily, you are in with honorable mention. How you doing? Glad you could join us. Now, I realize I've been looking at things. Well, we've all been looking at things. How is the world going? How are we going to survive this disaster that everybody says, oh, it's all coming. We've got to prepare for the end of the world. Tell you what. And I mean, I'm just going to put it out there. You want to prepare for the end of the world? Absolutely. I'm not the person to talk to about what machine, what equipment you need, how to go about harvesting all the right foods and what have you. Okay. I have heard I've been here 59 years. And I think in the last 20, I've been told the world is going to end at least a half a dozen times. So I came to a conclusion. The world is going to end. And here's how I'm going to prepare for it. I'm going to pick up a book. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to read, or in my case, I'm going to do a whole sheep load of writing. Okay. And I'm going to get my thoughts on paper and hopefully they'll survive. And when the world actually does buckle completely, I'm going to sit back. Tracy, how you doing? Glad you could join us. I'm going to sit back and hope that if it does turn into a nuclear war, long story behind that, can somebody give the people with the bombs the address so they can land it right on top of my head? I'd just as soon not be here to pick up the mess again. I'm going to end up back here anyway. But I really have had enough of watching people focus on how bad the world is and how disgustingly poor we're being treated and how it's everybody else's fault. So how about if we start with what I actually came here to do. Okay. Oh, by the way, I just got word from my artist. I just gave him final go ahead on the last 5 he did. I'll be sending the last 4 for Races of the Worlds out to him before the end of tonight. Now I do have to deal with this. Of course, you know me, I'm going to stay seated. I'm going to stay in one place and not move around because that is so much more professional. You know, my older brother told me one day, he goes, you know what a pro is? I looked at him and I said, the guy that's been trained. He goes, no. Somebody calls themselves a pro. That means pregnant, retarded ostrich. And I know the word retarded is going to upset somebody. Okay. Matter of fact, the word pregnant probably upset somebody. For all I know, the way the world's going, we're going to have to change the name of ostriches because somebody's going to get upset about it. I don't get it. You know, where were we? Just paid this today. This is 1, 2, 3. Bingo. All I'm doing is exactly what I set in here for. Today, 04, 0. No, yeah, 04, 03, 2, 02, 3. Paid by CTFS. Okay. Now, this is one of those things about making sure your finances are in order. Be certain to file things immediately as soon as you can. So, we go up here, utilities, mobility. Where is it? Ranch. There we are, mobility. Now, let's get down to brass tacks, shall we? Okay, first rule of thumb. Budgets on the whole, in my experience, you know, I know, fairness, Tracy, thank you so much for being here as well. I do appreciate the support and the time that you guys put into actually coming and listening to me. Quite frankly, in my case, I figure I babble half the time. But if it's helping, I can work with it. Now, first and foremost, how you doing, football? Glad you came through the door. Hope your day has been going well. We start with the obvious issue. Of course, I get up and move the pen out of the way. This is always a good move. Tell you, I slept on the couch this morning for a while. Something to do with the fact I got up after 2.5 hours of sleep. Decided that wasn't a good idea. So I was up for a few hours, then sat down, then lay down on the couch, went to sleep and dislocated my shoulder. So it's bugging me a lot. That's okay. I just took a couple of painkillers for it. Eris, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Now, let's get finances under control, shall we? First and foremost, you have to figure out one little detail. Okay, here's the first step. This funny little sign. Get that written somewhere where you can see it. Okay, get it put someplace. You know, this simple thing in a statement. I am worth it. That's the first thing to look at. Because all the finances in the world are going to be a major problem if you don't feel you deserve to have them. Okay, so that's the first thing. Now, I only follow 3 laws. Okay. Oh, hot damn, football. That is absolutely fantastic. Well done. Now, don't you feel a whole lot better with that debt gone? Okay, now and we'll deal with that one right off the bat. I was going to get to it in a bit anyway. Hey, 4 years, I didn't say it. You know, the reality is it takes a heartbeat to get into debt in credit card debt. But because of the interest rates, it can absolutely wipe you out. Now the trick is, if you talk to the professionals, okay, the professionals say don't go over 30% of whatever your card limit is. I'm telling you, that's backwards. Whatever your credit card limit is. And this applies to all of you. Okay. Oh, by the way, football, this is for you. Well done. You know, this is the thing. This is what this is all about. Reclaiming power over your own life. Now, the professionals, you talk to a financial advisor, they'll say, don't spend more than 30% of your credit card limit. Okay, don't ever spend more than 30%. I'll tell you, that doesn't work as well as you might think. Look at your credit card limit and keep it under 10%. Meaning, if you've got $1,000 credit, $1,000 credit limit, okay, you never put more on it if you can avoid it. If at all possible, do not spend more than $100 before you pay it off completely. Okay, that is the biggest. That's okay, football. I think everybody and their dog has a whole stack of problems. Okay, and this is one of the reasons. It's actually been because of you guys that I've turned things around and really gone, okay, how do we go about doing this? Now, I realize the off-world is a wonderful place to hang around. It's got all kinds of neat things going on. The future is fabulous. It can be a fabulous place. Kimberly, how you doing? Glad you could join us. But the time that we have to work with is right here, right now. Now, when you've got a credit card, if you've got $1,000 limit, okay, if you have $1,000 limit, then you do not spend more than $100 if you can avoid it on that credit card before paying it off. If you have to spend more than $100, don't spend any more. Like, spend what you have to, but don't spend any more until it gets back under that 10% mark. Okay. And again, this is because of the fact that by keeping under the 10%, you're in a position to actually clear the debt regularly, because it's the interest that'll kill you. Now, I don't know about you. Where's my whatchamacallit? Yeah, it's right next to the thingummy right in that sits over by the wahooza. There we are. Now, I got computers all over the place in here. What do I grab? A solar-powered calculator. But you know, if you've got $100, you know, a lot of the credit cards out there are paying this incredible 29%. Okay, this means if you put $100 on your credit card, okay, right off the bat, if you don't pay it off by the due date, and they usually give you 3 weeks to pay it off, if you don't pay it off right on completely, all of a sudden you're paying $129 to clear that debt. And it gets worse. Okay, but I'm not going to go into all the mathematics on it. Okay, so the first thing we look at is, let's start with the big thing. So, like you, okay, well, probably not like you. Some of you are still on this road, on this particular road. I use pen and paper. Quite frankly, it works like a charm. So we take a look, and this is I'm going to walk through this with you, because this is the way to actually turn it around. Did I bring the other one? Where did I put it? Yeah, I did. This thing. I actually started reworking it to transfer it over to get it into print, aka ASAP. Okay. As you can see, I've already got it written, so it's not really that big of an issue. I just have to go and turn it around. But we start off. YJ, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Hope your day's been going well. You know, we start with realizing this is to be done for you. It's got nothing to do with your kids. It's got absolutely jack to do with your family. It has to do with you. Okay. So, how do we go about organizing your finances? Okay. Now, ironically, I've already got this one in print and ready to go. Okay, this is more, where are we here? This one. Okay, this particular book, and again, I do my best to keep these particular ones really short. Okay, for a lot of reasons. This is looking at business. Now, let's get something straight here. Your household finances, your private money, is your business. That is what you've got to look at. Whether you are looking at, whether you are looking at running an actual business, or your house, you got to pay the rent or lease, whatever you're going to call it. You got to pay the mortgage. You got to pay your utilities. You got to pay your inventory. Right, you got to pay for cleaning, for transport. All of these things are the same thing, whether you've got what you call a business or you've got a house. It doesn't matter, or you're renting an apartment. It doesn't matter. And I believe that goes, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. And I put my pen down. Well, at least I'm consistent. I lose a thing more often than I care to count. But if you got one handy, grab a sheet of paper. Okay, and we look at first things first. Okay, you're going to look at the utilities. These are the things at your living expenses. Oh, look at that. We froze. We're going to look at your living expenses. Okay, the ones that have to be paid in order to keep a roof over your head, in order to ensure that you are actually not ending up on the street. And yes, in case you hadn't noticed, that little thing is not exactly a board, it's my cutting board. Remember I said everything's connected? Everything has multiple uses. Things work out that way for me. So, we start off with the living expenses, and that means, now whether we call it your rent, your mortgage, or your lease, it doesn't matter. Okay, call it what you will. Call it your peanut butter sandwich for all it matters. Okay, but your living expenses include. Okay, and you notice the term include. This means that we are not talking about they stop there. This is where they start. Things may shift a little for you. But you've got your rent. You've got your utilities. Now, utilities are literally, what do we got here? And that's just it, Joe. If you've got a method that is working, this is fantastic. To be frank, I'm not entirely certain what an EBT card is. I'm guessing electronic banking transaction. If you've got a system that works, absolutely use it. This is not the only one available. And the fact that I am not a multimillionaire may tell you that there has got to be better ways of doing things. Okay, but utilities are things like your power, your phone, your cell phone, and I do separate the two, quite frankly. Okay, you may have water, cable, some of these things will be looped together. Some may be included with your rent. Okay, but your power, your cable, and maybe you've got gas that you're working with. Okay, then you have to deal with your insurance. And yes, insurance is one of those things that you're spending money on and hoping you never actually utilize. Okay, but it's one of those payments you deal with in order to avoid a disaster in the future. Okay, so when we're looking at insurance, you're looking at house insurance, you're looking at health insurance, and you're looking at your car insurance or your auto insurance. Now, understand something. Insurance does not mean you won't have a problem. That's up to you. Okay, what it means is if there is a problem, you're likely to be better equipped to deal with it. Okay. Thank you so much for clarifying that, Kimberly. I appreciate that. Well, Joe, if you're terrible at finances, this may help. I mean, the food stamps is great, don't get me wrong. Okay. To me, this is not something to look down on. If you're using food stamps and it works, more power to you. Put them to use properly. The fact is, this is what I mean by we have to work together. This method I'm laying out here will help you if you've got the finances to deal with it. But it's one step at a time. And, the reality is, as football pointed out, it took her 4 years to correct the problem. But now that it's corrected and you're on top of it, football, now you can start making real headway. Okay. So we have the utilities, we've got the insurance. Now you want to look at your bill and you want to look at your transportation. Now, transportation could be either your own vehicle, the bus system, taxis, whatever it is. Okay, however you get around, you still got to look at it. Even if you get around by walking, you still got to look at the cost of shoes. Okay. Speaking of which, and again, these are simply things to put in a list. We'll get to how to break it up in a minute. Okay, if we didn't break it up properly to start with. Once you've got the transportation dealt with, now you've got to look at clothing. And oh my gosh, here's the thing that we forget. Okay, you gotta look at, well, most of you won't forget this one. You gotta look at your food. Okay, now I will tell you, I have spent a staggering amount on eating out because I don't like to cook. Okay, but food in the house is kind of a necessity. I do recommend you have at least somewhere between 3 and 4 months of food, of non-perishable food in the house. If you know how to can, if you know how to dry food, this is a fantastic method. Okay, but any way you look at it, and here's the real kicker to you. Okay, most people, they overlook this funny thing when you're looking at a stockpile of food. Okay, let's get lots of canned food. Wake up. Either make sure the food and the cans themselves have a pull top or a twist top that will open up for you, or don't forget a manual can opener. Now, that said, hang on 1/2 second. I should have grabbed this because I wasn't really thinking on that one. What I went to get was this thing. Okay, now, think of this. Where it comes to a can opener. Yes, electric can openers are fabulous. They're real easy to use. Okay, the ones that have that little twist handle that you can just crank the can open with, they're great. However, if you have a power outage, all the canned food in the world is useless. If you have a power failure, or if that little twist, if that mechanical can opener breaks, okay, then you have a problem. Oh, give you the other one as well. Now, personally, I strongly recommend these because the less moving parts you have, the better off you are. Okay, so these ones, I keep one of each of these around. This one, now some of you guys will recognize this. You'll notice it's got a pointy end for popping and for punching holes in your cans. Many of you my age will recognize this. Those of you that are younger may not. Okay, But find a can opener that looks like this. It's got the pointy end on one end for punching holes, and you got the back end for opening up the bottom bottles. Okay, for opening up things like your pop bottles if you can, or for those of you that are that way inclined, they work great for beer bottles as well. Because sometimes the twist top on a beer bottle just isn't going to open. Okay, then you've got this one. Okay, this one is the other one I keep around for exactly the same reason. Okay, it's the same idea. It's got the pointy side to cut a lid off, not just punch a hole, because I'll tell you, this will leave all kinds of craters. This one cuts a relatively clean hole, a relatively clean top. But when you're buying your canned foods and stockpiling, make sure you've got one of both of these, one or the other. This one does it really rough, but it does the job. For those of you that do it yourself, a flat, like a common screwdriver and a hammer also works. Although it's a pain in the neck, this is just one of those modern conveniences that works really well. Yeah, it's called a little bit of a sidetrack. This one takes the top completely off. Okay, and again, find one that works, that is not mechanical, as in moving parts, or electric. You keep it in backup, because if there is a power failure, or if the mechanical one breaks, and I've had it happen. Okay, so you make sure you've got your food listed. Now here's the one that most people do forget. Okay, make sure you put an allowance together for your entertainment. Because like it or not, people require entertainment. Shadow, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Okay, these are expenses that are living expenses. These have to be covered before you start looking at your debt load, really. Okay, and the reason for that is because this is what keeps the roof over your head. Okay, this is what keeps your stress level down a little lower. Okay, now you'll notice I did exactly the same thing. I don't expect you to read this, by the way, but I've got the list on my paper. Now, let's take a look at the bills you have. Okay, because the idea here is however you got to your financial state, whatever happened, whether it was stupid spending on your part, which I've done way more than my fair share of. Tell you where I went really stupid. I don't like cooking. So I was spending $300 to $400 a month at a restaurant. Great for their business, useless for my finances. However, we start with the list of what your bills actually are. Okay, those will be things like your credit cards. Oh, speaking of credit cards, I mentioned your utilities being power, phone, and cell. Okay, take one credit card, doesn't matter which one. One credit card that has room on it. That is listed as a utility. Okay, it is an active credit card because in today's world, they are kind of useful. Okay, but only one gets listed as a utility. All the rest get put into the bill category. Okay, now the thing with a credit card is you use it on a rotating base. Put money on it, pay the thing off. Okay, it usually takes 2 or 3 days to get the money and to get the charge to show up on your credit card. Keep this in mind. Okay, now we're going to look at the bills that you've accumulated, that massive debt hanging over your head. You may have credit card loan, or you may have credit cards. You might have a loan at the bank. Okay, bear in mind, a loan at the bank is one of those really funny things. It's both a necessity and maybe a debt. And what I mean by that is if you're paying a lease on a car, remember what I said about that transport being a necessity to pay it off? you've also got to look at that as a debt. So you may have a loan with the bank or with a trust company. You may have a line of credit. These are all things that add to that debt load that you're sitting on, that you've got hanging over your head, and you're looking at it going, how am I ever going to get out? Because there's all these programs out there that go, oh, if you got $50,000, you can make this kind of money. This is fantastic if you got $50,000. Joe, that is an excellent thing. Again, that is one of those things that gets listed as a debt. Okay, you're buying to pay for the future to deal with your family. Okay, absolutely. And that brings about the other thing. The family plot is a debt. So is the cost of your burial. Okay, these are things that have to be looked at. Technically you don't have to look at them. You die, your problems are over. Unless you really were a bad person and then just beginning, but that's another story that we'll get into later. But absolutely, the family plot is one of those things that you definitely put on your list of bills. Okay. Now, these are essentially, it's an investment in your future. Now, I love investments. I really do. I won't do it again. I made that mistake. But, in fact, I'll tell you where my primary investment is. My investment for me financially is me. My investment in a colloquial sense is you guys. You're the ones in the chat room. Let's get your future stabilized. Now, I love the fact that football is now credit card debt free. I'm absolutely tickled pink about it. Okay, does it do me any good other than making me feel good that I pointed her in a direction she went and it worked? That's where I get the benefit. Okay. YJ goes, I prefer to be cremated and then let my kids put my ashes on my property on one of the spots we love a lot. Absolutely. Okay, but let's not forget, getting cremated in today's world is still going to cost you. This is still a funeral expense. Okay, so you're still going to have to deal with that anyway. Myself, I told my ex-wife when we were talking about it, look, I don't care what you do with my body. Ship it off to the morgue, ship it off to the crematorium, ship it off to science. It don't matter to me. I'm dead, do what you will. But would you mind doing me a favor and just decapitate me before they try and bury me or anything else? They've already misdiagnosed my death so often, I just don't feel like it. YG, I can relate with that too. I hate to tell you this, Joe, that's your department, not mine. I can't even give you numbers to call for that one. But I'm sure you're resourceful enough you can deal with that. Now, here's the neat little part, football. You're going, none of that. My mom can have all the money. What if she dies first? But the point is, what you do with your funeral arrangements, we can deal with that afterwards. But it's still a bill you're going to have to look at. The other thing you may owe. Now, these are interest accruing debts. These are debts. We're looking at the interest accruing debts right now, which is your credit cards, your loans, your line of credit, okay, and any lease that you may have. These all are an ongoing bill that has to be wiped out. What do we got here? I agree with you there, YJ. You want dating advice? Don't do what I did, and here's what I did. This is why I'm talking to you about the financial side. What I did, I'm not going into it. Your student loan can be dealt with, but again, and we'll get to where that fits in the whole list of things. So we look at your interest accruing debts, the ones that if you don't get them paid, they're going to keep building. And to me, this is just insane, but that's beside the point. Once you've got those listed, now you break the third one in. Okay. You want to go in and you want to look at all the bills that you have that don't accrue interest. These things include, as Joe was kind enough to bring to our attention, funeral arrangements. If you're already paying for them, and quite frankly, it's one of those things I'm going to go out once my estate comes in, that's the first thing I'm going to do. Well, probably the second. But I'm going to go out and I'm going to pick how to deal with my funeral. And I'm going to pay for it outright so that it's dealt with so the kids don't have to deal with it. Funeral, the cost of getting a will put together. That's the word I'm looking for. Yeah. You put all of that aside, YJ. In other words, if you've got life insurance, this is great. That's one of those insurance things. Funny thing about life insurance is it doesn't guarantee you're going to live. Okay, but non-interest accruing debts. You've got your funeral and the end of your life expenses. You've got loans that you've got from friends or family that are not charging you interest. Okay, and if they are charging you interest, they're now creditors. Okay, any sort of a loan, any sort of a lease, anything that you're paying to somebody else, whether it's family or friends, it doesn't matter. Okay, these are the ones that get put in the third list. So when your money's coming in, you look at, first of all, your living expenses. That is the first category that you deal with. That's got to be dealt with before anything else. Okay, and there's all sorts of things looking at there. Of course, that's the other thing we should look at. This is your debt load, your living expenses, your interest accruing debts, and then your static debts, the ones that won't change. Okay, now, what order do we deal with these in? Well, that's the easy part. You deal with group number 1 first, that being your living expenses. Get them paid. Okay, now I'm no financial advisor, as in I've never been trained, unless we count the School of Hard Knocks. I've done some pretty dumb things. I was actually really creative. Years ago, when I first started getting into credit cards, I took a credit card with $1,000 limit, and before they cut it off, I had racked up $2,000 on it. I called it creative financing. Looking back on it, I should have called it absolute abject stupidity. The reality of that, Shadow, that is one definitive way of dealing with things. Okay. Sometimes people run into problems. I mean, if you have it, this is fantastic. Okay, but the massive majority of people buy into the dumb thing of buy now, pay later. Okay, this doesn't work as well as you might think. So we're going to cover some of that as well. Okay, but you pay your living expenses first. Okay, and we'll get to the tracking side of it in a minute. But that's where this little book is going to actually come in handy. Because I'm transferring all this information, into this funding little book. I may well change the name of it. I'm not sure yet. Okay. Because I believe it's going to fall under the category of the Believe in Your series. Okay. But most people fall into the category of buy now, pay later, or gee, I really desire to have that right this moment. Most of the time, this backfires in a big way. We'll get to that in a couple of minutes. So the first thing that you deal with is get your current bills, your current expenses paid. And when I'm talking about entertainment, I am not talking about, I knew one person, I kid you not, the husband got $100,000 every year as a bonus for his work. And because of their incessantly going on separate holidays, they could not keep up. And I'll tell you, did I ever get an earful when I suggested cut back on one holiday a year each? They were taking a dozen holidays a year and wondering why they were behind the eight ball. But I'll tell you, when I told them, cut one of those holidays out and you'll be fine. Man, you should have heard the names I got called. Okay. But you deal with your living expenses. Now, those list however you choose, because they've all got to be paid. Okay. I spent the morning writing mine off. Paying all my utilities off and what have you. As well as my credit cards, by the way. Okay. Then you take your list of interest accruing debts. How you doing there, Ken? Glad you could join us. And we are going to have to talk, but you keep phoning. You keep phoning at really bizarre times. And unfortunately, Ken, just to be blunt, because of the way my schedule works, when I made the comment today, call me back in 5 minutes, that's literally how much time I had to work with. Because then things went sideways all of a sudden. Just kind of works out that way for me quite regularly. But take a look at all of your interest accruing debts. List them all out in the order of which bill, which debt has the highest, monetarily speaking, debt, and list them in order of the height of them, of the amount. If you've got a $5,000 credit card debt and a $2,000 credit card debt, or let's bring it down further, one of them is $1,000 and one of them is only $300. Okay, you put the $1,000 at the top. Well, this is very true, but I will tell you, Aris, killing your firstborn has never affected the weather or finances. Well, that's not true. You kill the firstborn, it will affect your finances. You won't have any, you'll be in jail. But, the fact of the matter is that people are not willing to do the work. I'm really happy with football. Gave her some directions. She went, here's the direction I've been given. Let's do this and see if it works. Here we are, credit card debt free. Fantastic. Okay. Take your list of interest accruing debts. List them out as, yeah, no doubt. I heard it put one day there, Eris, that, criminals should be put in old age homes and old age people should be put in prison. Because in the prison, they get everything for free. They get it right off the bat. In an old age home, they get ignored in many, many, many cases. Okay. But you list your interest accruing debts from the biggest number, not the interest rate. The interest rate is irrelevant. Well, not entirely. But, okay, you take that in that list, and the one that's got the highest balance, that's at the top of the list, and you list them down. You target, you make your minimum payments on them as much as you can, but you target the smallest, monetarily speaking, interest accruing debt first, and the reason for this is because, first and foremost, it clears it off, and then you've got the extra money to turn around and sink it into the other ones. And the reason you target the small ones first is because, mentally speaking, it is easier to cope with one big debt than several dozen little tiny debts. Okay, this is why you go after the biggest ones first. Now, I realize you've got these other personal debts, debts to friends, loans that you've got to pay back that you borrowed because you were in trouble. Okay. Yeah. The one thing I would caution you there, YJ, okay, absolutely, your housing has to come first. Your next one, okay, and this applies to everybody out there, whether you're a multi-billionaire or you live on pocket change. Okay, you target housing first, you target your power second. Okay, and the reason for that is because if you don't have power, most of your communications, okay, once if your communication lines, like my cell phone, for instance, I don't pay my power. Let's say I've got the phone bill paid off completely. This is fantastic. If there's a power failure, I can't charge it. Okay, it's just that simple. And that is exactly the point there, YJ. You cleared the little debts, and now that extra money that you had, let's say you had 10 debts, okay, of varying amounts, but you had a total of 10, and you've got $100. So you can, at that point, you can put 10 on each one, okay, but again, you still have to look, and finances it can be a very complicated, very overwhelming thing. Okay, and I realize I'm running through this relatively quickly, but this is why I'm also going to be putting it on paper. Okay, now, that being said, once you've got the interest accruing debts out of the way, now you're free and clear to get everybody else dealt with, to get rid of those neat little things called debts to family, friends and family. Oh, I forgot to put one thing in your living expenses, people. And again, it's one that many people forget about. You have to look, at my age, I'm looking at survival, period. If you're younger than I am, start immediately looking at your retirement. Okay, this is one of those things that many people overlook. Okay, now I'm not the one to tell you exactly how to go about setting that up. That's just not my ball of wax. I go to a financial advisor, one that I actually trust, to sort things out. Okay. Once you've got this moving, now let's look at the other side of it, because this will determine how you go about it. Okay. Figure out how much money you've got coming in from all sources, be that government, be it self-employment, be it employment, be it some sort of a settlement. It doesn't matter where it's coming from. Okay, list off every single source of income you've got to figure out what your monthly income is. Okay, that is the kicker to all of this. You figure that side of it out. This is excellent, Adam. Okay, and it's definitely something that helps. However, keep on top of it. Okay, definitely keep on top of it. Like, I don't know, and you may have told me, but how old you are doesn't matter. The reality is, get on top of it now. Go and talk to somebody that you trust about what you're going to require to maintain what you consider a functional living. Okay, that's the critical factor. Okay, I was just talking to the one financial advisor I do trust today, and she flat out told me, at my age, given what I've got to work with, an RSP at my age is pretty pointless. Okay, it just doesn't work all that well. But a tax-free savings account will work wonders. So I'm going to go deal with that. Well, I've already dealt with it. I was going to go deal with it, but I already did that, so I'm not going to do it anymore. By the way, people, if you go through this and you do require a little bit extra guidance, a little bit extra pointing out in that direction, getting a hold of me is not entirely impossible. It's a pain in the neck sometimes, as I'm sure Ken in the chat room here can attest to, because my schedule gets absolutely bizarre. Okay, but take a look at it. Get on top of your retirement plan to ensure that you know what you're up against. Okay, once you know what your income is, then you'll know how much you've got to actually write off all the extra bills. Okay, this is just one of those very important factors that you have to look at. Okay, but the thing is, we are taught to finance, as we're growing up, and this we're getting into right away here. As most of you are growing up, you're taught finances are difficult. Okay, you're taught it's something to be, that you've got to have expert advice. Here's some expert advice for you. Where are we here? Yeah, Ken's going, do you have a few minutes after the show? The answer is I should. There shouldn't be any problem. I got nothing scheduled. Although there's one complication that may arise, but once the show is over, absolutely give me a call, and we will do what we can with it. The thing that we look at here, yes, I get sidetracked, and all of a sudden my brain goes on hold. When you look at how much money you've got coming in, then you can figure out what you've got to work with. Okay, we are taught growing up that finances are scary, they're difficult, you need a professional advisor. Okay, call me professional, call me a pro, I'm pregnant, retarded ostrich, I can go with it. I've been called worse by better. Okay, you'd be amazed at how many things I've been called. Or appalled, one of the two. You take care there, Ken. Thanks for dropping in. When you take a look at the fear of finances, and fear and finances, great, they go hand in hand, but here's the kicker to it. Call me a pro, I'm a pregnant, retarded ostrich. Here's some this is financial advice that you can take to the bank, literally. Hey, Christine, how you doing? Glad you could join us. This is absolutely fail-safe, and there's very little in the world that is fail-safe. But here's the best advice I can get, and I can give you. Spend less than you make. Okay, spend less money than you make. You will end up with more money in your savings. It's that simple. Now, did you have to go down to the bank and talk to a financial advisor to figure this out? Okay. If so, go down and talk to them. I will tell you, the bank is interested in them making money. Okay. But there's some financial advice for you. Okay. It's absolutely rock solid. It is absolutely infallible. You spend less money than you make, you will end up with more money at the end of the month. If you put less calories into your body than you burn off, you will gain weight. Okay. No, that's wrong. Boy, did I screw that one up. When you consume less calories than you expend, you're going to drop your weight. It's simple math. Okay. Don't put as much garbage, don't put as much negative thinking into your life as you do positive, and you'll feel better. See the way this is all relatively connected? The reality of it is, when you think about it, if you use your brain, because understand, money does not care one way or the other what you feel like. Money could care less whether you're in a good mood, a bad mood. It doesn't care who you vote for. Doesn't care how much money you've got in the bank. It works the exact same fashion. Okay. Now, by the way, these are all things that I have done in error. Of course, I was raised with this neat little philosophy, and it's absolutely stupid if you ask me. Okay. If you've got kids and you've got finances, you know finances are expensive. I was raised in a world where we were not, where we did not discuss family finances at all. Okay. That was between mom and dad. So, of course, I get out on my own. I'm right up a creek because I don't know what's going on. Okay. And of course, any stress that is going on between mom and dad because of finances, and bear in mind, finances are the third most common cause of divorce. Okay. I'm not saying you have to combine if you're in a common law relationship, I'm not saying you have to combine your finances in one bank account. Okay. But I am saying sit down with each other, and if you've got kids, bring them to the table with you and lay out what the financial state of the house is. Show them how you're dealing with it, get their input on what they feel is important, involve them in the financial discussions. Okay. If you don't, you are literally and deliberately condemning them to figure it out the hard way. Okay. And I don't know of a parent that actually intentionally sets their kid up to have trouble. Actually, that's not entirely correct, but I know a lot of really weird people. Okay. Excellent job there, YJ. It is an absolutely fantastic move. Okay. Because what you're teaching them is when they get out on their own, and they will eventually get out on their own, even if they stay at home the entire time you're alive, you die, they're on their own. Okay. So this idea of giving the kids the flyers and saying, here, find the grocery list, put the grocery list together. What are we getting? Okay. Now, obviously, and this is for those of you that are kind of overlooking this issue, obviously double check the list because you want to make certain that things come into balance. Okay. So which one's aiming at the purchaser job? Barry, how we doing? Benny, my apologies. How we doing? Glad you could join us today. Involve your kids in the financial discussions, including the state of the mortgage. And I know this goes against everything most of you were probably taught. Okay. But the more you involve the entire household in the financial state, the better off you are. The less stress you'll have about the whole thing because everybody will have a vested interest in it. Okay. And especially when you think, now let us not forget something. That neat little thing I mentioned about having an entertainment budget. Okay. If everybody's pitching in, you may not go out for dinner every day. My mistake, I did. Okay. Don't do that. Really bad, really hard on the pocketbook. But make time. Ben goes, well, I remember that show. First rule of thumb. Okay. And this is a whole different ball game, but we're going to deal with it anyway. Benny just said, but I can't get no respect. That's not a big problem. You don't get respect. There is one simple little rule. Okay. There is one simple rule. If you're not getting respect, I had a very similar problem with my son, with my own son. Right, he wanted to do all the playing. He didn't want to do any of the chores. So I walked in and went, unplug the machine and walk off with the power cords, because I don't have the technical capacity to cut the cords like some people. Right, if I just pulled the plug and went, get the chores done, you can have the game back when you're finished. It's amazing how quick motivation can turn around. But the first reality, sad part is there, Benny. I don't have, I was told by one guy that I'm extremely rude and, I'm absolutely uncivilized. I'm extremely rude because of the fact that I warned him, don't go down that road. Don't push me. Don't try and convince me that this is a good path. It won't work well. He decided to push, and when I shut the conversation down, he accused me of being absolutely closed-minded, rude, and uncivilized. I'm thinking, well, possibly. I am closed-minded. I look at the way my life is going and go, this is the way I see it. My opinion and your opinion cannot be wrong. Okay? An opinion by its very nature cannot be wrong. The facts that you're dealing with, the information you're drawing your opinion from, can certainly be incomplete or misguided or flat out incorrect. But your opinion on the matter doesn't work. It cannot be wrong. Raven, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Now, where it comes to respect, it's very simple. Okay. But you have to develop a stubborn streak that says, this is the way I deserve to be treated. If I don't get treated this way, this is my lack of response routine. Do not get mad. You just look at them and go, I'm not doing that. This is what I asked. You didn't do that. This is a side effect. Cause and effect. People beak off about this issue about I have my rights. I know my rights. I know my freedoms. I have free will. You absolutely have free will. You have free will. You have freedom of choice. Okay. You absolutely do. But what not one single corporeal individual or incorporeal one has is you don't have freedom of consequence. Okay. When I was working for Dairy Queen, I watched a gentleman come through the drive-thru. Okay, he had two boys in the car. The fact of the matter is this. Okay, we'll get to that Christmas thing in just half a second there. Okay, we'll get to that little Christmas thing because I'll give you some ideas to deal with that as well. Christmas, birthdays, that sort of thing. It can all be dealt with on minimal budgets. I don't deal with the idea of, oh, you've got $1 million in your pocket and you want to go buy a chocolate bar? Go buy a chocolate bar. Okay, you might want to hold off on the idea of the gold wrap, but what the heck? Absolutely, Adam. Not a problem there at all. Now, when you're dealing with this whole idea of respect, it's very simple. You look at it and go, okay, here's the picture that I desire, and this is something I recommend you all do. Sit down with the people in your household, okay, and go, here's what I'm aiming for. These are the big ticket items I'm looking to buy. Like in my case, I personally desire the best of the best. And now, dagnabbit, I'm going to go and get it. Okay. And get this. I'm going to go and get the best of the best. Tomorrow we'll go get a vacuum. We just burned one out. It was funny. I was sitting there trying to vacuum the living room, and I'm getting electrocuted by the vacuum. For some twisted reason, my youngest son, the one still living with me, looks at me and goes, I know I'm supposed to do the vacuuming, Dad, but until you get a new vacuum, I'm not vacuuming anymore. I don't know what his hang up was. He wasn't the one getting electrocuted. That was me. But you sit them down and go, here's what I'm aiming for. This is the picture I've got for my life. Now, you're living here. This is great. You're part of the household. What are the things you desire to have happen? Okay. And let's work together to make it all happen. Okay. finances are a household event. Okay. I love the people that complain to me about, oh, the East Indians, they have like 3 generations of family living under one roof. And now they got 14 houses. Well, sorry, guys. This comes about by a cooperative effort. You can do the same thing. It's got nothing to do with skin color. It's got to do with finance. It's got to do with thinking what you're doing. Okay. Now, I've lived my life on the edge of poverty because of stupidity. And I'm striving to point this out to you so that if you're in that boat where you're still struggling, you can turn your head around and get things straightened out. You think about it. Now, I've got no income right now to speak of. I'm working on getting it turned around. Right. But the nice part about it is this. When you sit down and go, here's a picture of what I want. And by the way, this applies, correction. This is what I desire. The same applies if you run your own business or if you're managing a business. Sit down with the entire staff and go, this is the big picture. What do you require for me to attain this picture? Okay, that is something that you've got to deal with. Technically, you don't have to deal with it. Technically, you can stay on the path you're on and carry on. If you're suffering and enjoying that thing, if you're enjoying the suffering thing, absolutely have a happy and continue. Okay. But I will tell you, the limited budget, we talk about money and not having enough money, so we're having trouble. I'll tell you the type of video to go and look at. Go and look at the videos of the people in so-called third world countries. I'm telling you, they're not third world. It's still Earth. It's still one world. But watch those videos. The people that don't have a lot of all these neat little trinkets and baubles and flashing lights and squealing toys, some of them are happier than all get out, as long as they're not being shot at. Okay. The reality of it is that when you look at money as a bonus, not as a cause, you will find your life takes a whole lot of a change. Okay. Whatever you're doing, put the money as a side effect, not as a target. Okay. Now, will I end up, when I get my book selling properly, will I end up with a surplus income? Certainly. But here's the kicker to it. That income, I've already laid it out, and I don't know where it is right now. And I'm not going to go and try and track it down. That's a job for after the show. I've already laid out profit sharing as my company gets older, as it gets bigger. And this is just the thing it's just what I took a look at and went, this is what I desire to have happen. So as I end up with a higher income, I will be doing things like and I've already started doing it. I walked into a restaurant the other day. And the other day, probably a few months back now. But it's something that I just decided I'm going to do. And you can bet your bottom dollar I'm going to end up doing this because I've got the money to pull it off now, in spite of no functional income. Okay. But a few months back, a couple of years back, I went down to the shopping mall. Okay. My company had put a little bit of money together. Okay. It had turned around. My company, I'd put a little bit of extra money together. So at Christmas time, I took five Christmas cards, only 5, put $20 in each one. And all I wrote in the card, like $20 cash, all I wrote in the card was Merry Christmas from Inner Voice Enterprises. Now, before we jump on this silly little idea of, I don't believe in Christmas. I don't care. I do. Okay. You don't like the term Merry Christmas. You want to use the term season's greetings. Heck, I don't care if, from my standpoint, probably kind of funny if you think about it in a real twisted sense. Take a blank card, put $20 in it. Okay. And just write on it, hope your day is miserable, and walk off. I don't care. You can insult people as far as that goes. It's kind of stupid in my eyes, but what the heck. But I did that to 5 people. Each one, all I did was put $20 cash. No sales pitch, no nothing. Just Merry Christmas from my company. That was it. And I walked off. On a couple of occasions, I did end up seeing what the reaction was. Okay. What I'm starting to do now, and what I'm going to be doing the next time I go out, okay, is I'm going to take a look, and I don't care who it is, right? The next time I go out to a restaurant, because I'm not going out to a restaurant as often as I was. I've started cooking at home. Okay, but that's surplus money. And this is what I'm referring to about the fact that as my company gets bigger, I'm going to be turning around and starting a charity where 100% of what goes into that fund goes to pay for something else, be it buying somebody a meal, buying somebody their groceries. I don't care. Will I be going and handing cash out to people on the street? No. What I will do if somebody is short on food is buy them a sandwich or something like that. Where are we here? I appreciate that, YJ. I will take a look at that later tonight. Because for obvious reasons, I'm not going to try and figure it out today. Or while I'm on the air. I gotta ask, Benny, what country are you living in? Because this sort of thing, I mean, this is the kind of information I don't have. Benny's just saying, I know about small businesses grant the pay that no payback and 5 or more employees get $2,600 ahead for each employee, and the U.S. Treasury has $1.2 billion of free money. 85% of businesses don't know about it. Nathan, how you doing? Glad you could join us. It's that kind of thing that I don't know about, and I've got to look into because, quite frankly, it would be beneficial. There's a lot of things I don't know about where it comes to the actual financial side. What I know about is how to control the money you've got coming in and make it go further. This is what I'm referring to. And of course, the fact of the matter is, you get your finances under control. Here's 3 things that get affected. The social and the interaction you have with the people in your household. Your stress level, that improves. Your stress level collapses. Your finances all of a sudden take a turn for the better. Can't figure that one out. Don't spend as much. End up with more in the bank. What a weird concept. And yet the professionals will tell you, come to me, spend, give me $400 of your hard-earned cash and I'll help you make money. How about this? You want to send me money? I got no problem. I have never turned down free cash. Okay, I've never turned it down. I actually remember. Yeah, Eris is just saying there are low-budget cooking channels on YT, on YouTube. I have no doubt about that. There you go, Adam. Just remember, no running over, no running over other vehicles. It's just bad for the traffic. The reality of it is this. You get your finances in control. You bring the debt level down. The energy in your house will travel more smoothly. This is just a side effect you're going to have to experience it. Where are we? Okay. Then go back up here. Where do we have this? There's a whole lot of things I don't know. Okay. Other people could write volumes about what I don't know. As far as the number of people I've ticked off by going, By the way, I'm going to give you this piece of information for free. People look at me and go, "What? You can't do that. You've got to get paid." Tell you what, somebody desires to send me money. That's easy. Okay. I still haven't figured out how to get the website or this YouTube channel working right. But that's something I've got to sit down with somebody about sometime. Because I've got an account with Buy Me a Coffee. As you can see, it's not exactly where it should be. Don't know why. Care why. Don't know how to deal with it. And at this point, a little bit of a hiccup. By the way, you'll notice, like I said, I was diagnosed a type 2 diabetic. You can tell I pay a lot of attention to my doctor. But I mean, it was absolutely phenomenal. And people, I'm going to show you something here. And whatever you do, and I know some idiot out there is going to do it, and people can get offended by the term all they want. I watched a YouTube channel, a YouTube blurb one day. The guy said, add this to your gas tank, and it will save you hundreds of dollars in gas. Then he takes a bottle that looks exactly like this. Okay, exactly. And he turns it upside down into his gas tank. Now, I don't know about you, but I can see how that would save you gas mileage, gas expenses, because that sucker is going to freeze your gas tank solid, your engine solid. Engine doesn't run, you don't spend gas money. Okay, I'm not sure, but I don't think that's a viable method. But the tools I'm talking about work like a charm. Okay, well, they actually work better than a charm, because a charm boils down to wishful thinking. It's a great memory enhancer. I always got a kick out of it. Tie a string around your finger, to help you remember something. I'm not entirely certain how that ever worked for anybody, because I'll tell you, I did it one day. I tied a string around my finger for a number of different things. By the end of the day, I looked at my finger and went, now why is my finger cocooned in string? I still couldn't remember what I put all those strings on my finger for. Oh, I'm unaware of a lot of things, Benny. This is why in the last 10 years, I have spent in excess of $10,000. Bear in mind, it was a chunk of money this year, wait a couple of years, spend a chunk of money with another company that said, oh, we can help you. Great sales pitches. And I was stupid enough in my eyes to believe them. Okay. So I'm having to learn things the hard way on that department. You think about it. Where is it? Oh, plugged in. Today. Now, this is a computer. Okay. Now, a computer should not, as far as I understand it, tell you one moment, oh, I'm sorry, you can't look at your emails. And then without you touching the keyboard, turn around and go, by the way, your emails are available again. My phone should not pick and choose what text messages come in. Yet it does. Okay. So do I trust technology to do what it should? Absolutely not. Okay. So am I very much behind the 8 ball? Yes. But that said, this is why I brought up this in the first place. As in paper, pen. Amazingly enough, you write something down on paper with a pen or a pencil, and you have a power outage, all you gotta do is move to some place where there's a little more light and you can still see it. It's not like you're writing in evaporating ink. And I don't mean invisible ink, I mean ink that just goes away. Okay, but by sitting down with the people that you're connected to, okay, and talking about the finances, your goals, your plans, go, this is my desire. Now, here's the thing. In Eastern philosophy, and specifically in Japan, a CEO goes, like the owner of a company goes, I desire this out of my company. Okay, this is what I desire to have. So I'm going to turn around and I'm going to go down, not to the CEO, not to the manager. Western society goes, owner says to the manager, this is what I desire. And the manager goes to the assistant manager, who goes to the department heads, who goes to the kitchen manager, whatever, and works all the way down to the bottom. But have you ever played what used to be called, at least when I was growing up, the broken telephone game? Test this if you own your own company or you run or you manage your own company. Try this one on. It's an old game. It's played in kindergarten. All sit down. Okay. You, the owner, the head of the whole thing, whether you're the owner or the manager, doesn't matter. Write something down. Write a sentence down. Doesn't matter what the sentence is. Doesn't matter what the sentence is. Write it down. Okay. And then do not show the other person. Close it up and tell the first person in line tell them in your ear, like whisper to them what you design, what that sentence was. Doesn't matter what the sentence is. Okay. Doesn't matter at all. But you tell the first person in line. They turn around and whisper that sentence to the next person in line. Okay, when it comes out the other end, when it finally comes to the end, have the person that is the last in line say what the sentence was. Let them tell you. Then open up the sheet of paper and say what the original sentence was. You may be shocked, stunned, appalled, or hopefully pleasantly surprised at the sentence that comes out the back end. Okay. It's kind of like food. Food goes in the mouth, it goes through all the different organs, all the different parts, and comes out the back end. Doesn't look at all, hopefully, except in the case of corn, I find, doesn't look at all like what went in. Okay. The nice part about it is this is one of those ways, and you can pass this information on to anybody. Okay. It's this sort of thing that it doesn't matter what walk of life you come from. Okay. The best financial advice that anybody can give you, okay, is spend less than you're making. Okay. You spend less than you're making, including interest charges. You will survive in a much better fashion. Okay. Now, here's the other part of this. Okay. You're told if you're not making enough money, if you've got an income and you're not making enough money, there's only one thing you can do. You've got to cut back on the amount you're spending. Don't spend so much. Hang on to that almighty dollar. Do not spend. I grew up in a bit of a twisted word. Maybe I got it all backwards. Probably did. But I came to a different solution. If you're not making, if you've got more expenses, more living expenses than you have income, then the issue here is not a question. It's not a question of only cut back. Absolutely cut back on stupid things. I was spending $300 to $400 a month on restaurant bills. This is just plain stupid. Okay. Other things didn't get paid because of that. But, yeah, I know the feeling there, Christine. I really do. I didn't go with takeout. I went to the restaurant. Okay. But I had too many problems with takeout delivery. But it's the same problem. Yeah, that's just it. We all have our vices. Okay. My dads were all kept in the shop. But, the reality is you spend less than you're making, your finances will turn for the better. But I was always told, same as many of you were, If you don't have enough money to make ends meet, cut back. Deprive yourself of this enjoyment. Remember that thing I mentioned right at the beginning when I was working out, when I was listing off your living expenses? Okay, they're called living expenses, not existing expenses. Okay, and this is why I said have an entertainment budget, something that you can do. You know, the first thing I tell people when a paycheck comes in, okay, treat yourself. By the way, one of the bills I forgot to mention, okay, one of your living expenses, a check comes through the door. Before you pay bill one, if possible, your rent and your power have to be paid. But go buy yourself a pop, buy yourself a coffee, buy yourself a chocolate bar. It doesn't matter. Buy yourself something. And the reason you do that is because it changes the energy of the income from I'm working to pay my bills to I'm working and paying my bills. And I'll tell you, the emotional difference is mind-boggling. You're not going to get, you're not, you know, it may sound great, but it's one of those things that experience does open doors. Where do we go? Yeah, Benny goes, I got a code for 74, yeah. Well, don't get me wrong, I'm not gonna strive to sort that one out. But if it's working for you, this would be the important factor. You know, I try, and to be honest with you, Adam, I tried skip the dishes once and swore I would never use them again. The company may be great, but the delivery driver didn't even phone me or text me to tell me he'd arrived. He left the pizza I ordered outside on the concrete outside of an apartment building without even notifying me it had arrived. And this is in the dead of winter. Okay. Needless to say, I haven't used it. As a matter of fact, I deleted the app from my phone altogether. And I just flat out won't do it anymore. Yeah, and that's you know, I go with non-perishable. You know, like I think I've got about 2 months of canned food still in the house. Okay. And and when I get done this tonight, I'll be phoning in. I think I'm phoning in today. I might phone in tomorrow and get a delivery brought in. Yeah, that's just it. And this is something, you know, you go back and work ethic was a heck of a sight better. But I'm not going to worry about the past. We are in the world today. Okay. And the reality of it is this: you have the ability to turn your life around to get your finances back where they belong. See, here's the thing, Benny. One little thing you might want to know about local organic farming. I won't debate that the farmers that say they're organic are not spraying poison direct, and you know, the insecticides and all that directly on their crops. But I will tell you, if there's anybody in the air system that is spraying it, and I do mean literally in the air system, as in on the freaking planet, that is using those pesticides, that farmer that isn't spraying them directly on it is still getting the toxins on their food. Okay, when Mount St. Helens in the middle of the state of Washington went off, I'm up here in the middle of BC. Okay, well, the middle of the center of the lower end, but we had ash from Mount St. Helens land on our property. Now, if this farmer isn't spraying the pesticides directly on their plants, this is fantastic. Keep talking to them. But I will guarantee, if the guy next door is spraying toxin on his plants, some of it's getting on yours. They use the same air, they use the same water, they use the same soil. Okay, but to each their own. I look at food this way. If it's made of plastic, inedible. If it's made of organic, digestible material, it's organic. Okay, maybe I'm backwards. Odds are I am. Okay, like I drink original Coke. Okay, I've tried Zero Coke. I watched somebody buy a thing of Zero Coke. I tried Zero Coke one day by accident. I found there was only one way to drink it. Okay, I took a bottle this size of Zero Coke, and I found that was really, in my opinion, really disgusting. So I added a quarter cup of sugar. Tasted great. Not exactly zero anymore. Oh, I'm not arguing that point at all. And that's why I said, from my standpoint, the reality, Benny, is everybody's open to do whatever they will. When it comes to the finances, just make certain that what you're paying for, like one of the other things I look at is this. Okay, all these sales that come out, be cautious of the sales that are out there. Okay, and this is one of the reasons why one of the books I'm writing is called How to Make Money, and More. Okay, and the trick to it is this. You go into a store and they go, here, this is on sale. I walked into one store in particular and I spotted mushroom soup was on sale for $1.20. Now this isn't for just one of these little cans. Okay. It was just one of these little cans for $1.20. Only whoever put the sign out left the original price there, and the original price was 99 cents. So I went to the department manager, and I went, "Can you explain this to me?" And the manager looks at me and goes, "Well," he says, "this is definitely a mistake. The sign never should have been left there." But he says, "Is it legal?" Absolutely. He says, "This can is on sale for $1.20. You give us $1.20, we give you the can. Perfectly legal, perfectly fine advertising." He says the stupid part is that we sell more when we put that little red sign that says sale than we do when we don't, and it's only at 99. Okay, watch your sale prices. The other thing that you take into consideration is when you're buying something that says 2 for 1. This is fantastic if you're going through it. But if you're not going through it, like for instance, 2 for 1 dishwasher soap, it's going to last you for a coon's age, unless, if you're not going through it, which means you pay more to get both and you still don't have it, unless you find somebody you can buy it with. Okay, where you can split the 2 for 1 stuff so everybody gets a little bit extra. These are just some of those funny little tricks. Yeah, in all fairness there, Adam, from my standpoint, most of the stuff I don't worry about name brand. Okay, most stuff I won't, but I have found some brands in certain things work better. They taste better or they work better. In my case, especially when I was taking Gravol, because I used to get motion sickness really bad. Name brand Gravol worked beautifully on my system. Over the counter, the no name brand Gravol or anything that wasn't actually called Gravol didn't work worth a hoot for me. Yes, absolutely there, Eris. This is absolutely a necessity. Okay, Benny, you go have a good meal. Enjoy yourself, and thanks so much for dropping in. Really appreciate your time. Yeah, absolutely, Eris. When you're striving to buy something on sale, be absolutely certain to double check the barcode. And to be clear on that, where it comes to the barcode, okay, when you're dealing with the barcode, if you don't know what the barcode, how to read the barcode, that's simple. Find somebody in the store that can tell you. Okay. If they don't have somebody in the store that can tell you, my recommendation is don't buy. Em goes, I think the only name brand thing we buy is Classic Coke. The funny thing with Coke is they did a really brilliant idea when they first brought this stuff out. Okay. I forget how much they put in it, but in each bottle of Coke, when they first put it out, they had actual cocaine in it. Right. Now, from what I gather, they don't. I still like the stuff, but I will tell you, and this is just a freebie for you. This stuff here. Here's an ad for you. This works better than virtually every every toilet bowl cleaner I've come across. This works incredible, and it's a heck of a sight less expensive. There are all sorts of ways of saving money, of making money work further. But the first trick is to realize what your income is, how much money actually is coming into your house, and are you spending less than what you're making? If you are, your finances will turn around quite nicely. I know, Christine, I know a lot of people that still have that problem. I just came to the conclusion I like the flavor of it. And in spite of the fact that the doctors told me, oh, Keith, you've got to cut back on your eating and on your sugar because you've got type 2 diabetes. 2 months later, they went, we can't find your diabetes. What happened? I said, oh, I did that really silly thing. I quit sitting on my tail feathers all the time, and I cut back on how much I was eating. Okay, that's just the reality of it. Okay, when you're looking at dropping weight, it's the same idea as gaining money. Okay, if you desire your weight to go down, put less calories into you that doesn't, than what you're burning, and you will drop weight. Yeah, Christine goes, I love Coca-Cola. I did stop drinking it, but I do have it once or twice a month. So I guess that's not stopping, just me cutting down. Ultimately correct. I know when I was drinking alcohol, I quit cold turkey and I quit drinking altogether. Okay, or more to the point, I cut way back. I went for a 26 for a night to a 26 or a decade. Okay, but I had this full-blown alcoholic come up to me one day and she goes, oh, I quit drinking just like you did. I looked at her and I went, you do realize that quitting every night does not count. Right. If you drink until you pass out, that's not called stopping drinking. That's called losing consciousness. Now, I will tell you, from my standpoint, since I took dominant control of where my finances are, in spite of the fact that people wanted to get me and wanted to coerce me into signing over power of attorney so they could control my finances. By the way, the ones wanting to do that, they're in worse shape than I am. So guess what my assessment was that they were after. But when you look at your finances, you bring your finances under control, your stress level drops, your energy level climbs, your health improves, your depression goes out the window. Okay, but like I said, with depression, find the fastest paced dance music you can find, crank it as high as socially acceptable, and let it run. Yeah, pretty much. Absolutely, Benny. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. I will be back again tomorrow, at least, maybe. I should be. Sometimes I don't make it because, well, I've got these funny little things called family issues that have to come up and that have to be dealt with. In my case, what I'm waiting for at this point is my son has to go up and sign the lease paper or the rental papers now because he's now a full adult. Where we go here? So I mean, all in all, these are just simple, really simple tools to get finances running properly. Now, here's the neat part about it. And this is something else that's actually included in this. So before I run it completely out of time, I'm just looking at this, noticing the state my throat's in and going, okay, we're running down on time. You require, and let's see if I can find it, because I didn't draw it out properly. Wonder if I've got one here. Nope, that was not it. What I'm looking for here is to see whether or not, what the heck is blocking it? Hate when I do that. Just looking at the files here, which I don't have. Okay, we'll have to do this without pictures. What do we got? Yeah, proofreading is. This is why I've got an editor that is absolutely pickier than heck, so that I can get that sort of thing done. Tracking your finances. Okay, this issue of drawing a budget. A budget is a fantastic idea if you have a definitive amount of money coming in. If you've got a check that is the same every month, you can run a budget. Or every month or every week, doesn't matter. If you're getting the same amount of money all the time, absolutely a budget will work perfectly for you. Most of you are getting a fluctuating income. As in, if you're paid by the hour, okay, your money may change from one check to the other. Okay, so budgets, in my experience, don't work. Take a look at the government. Now, here's a real brilliant idea. They tell you got to run a balanced budget. Have you ever known any government, well, aside from Alberta, about 10 years ago did, okay, but virtually no government runs a balanced budget. They're always running in a deficit because they're gambling on how much money is going to come in. Budgets are a problem. But if you track your money, okay, then you can stay on tab with it. Okay, and what I mean by tracking, all you really require is three columns. One for the balance. Well, you have one for the money coming in, one for the money going out, and you have a balance. Okay, now technically you need 5. Okay, because you have the date, you have the item, you have the money coming in, the money going out, and the balance. Okay. By doing that, now you can break it down further. I've got probably 15 or 16 because what I've done is I've got extra columns in that tell me, okay, I'm spending on meals out. I'm spending on my living expenses. I'm spending on transportation. At the end of the month, I can see where my overload is. And this is one of the things in this particular book that I did, was I put tables in so you can actually physically look at it. Okay, but by tracking how you're spending your money and keeping close tabs on it, I'm into my bank a minimum of once every 2 days. Okay, and I mean online. One of the few things I actually did figure out how to do online. Okay, but you track what you're spending your money on, and you'll find that you can control it a lot easier. Okay, but again, it boils down to you making the effort to make it happen. Okay, now all these tools that we've talked about, all this way of looking at it, if you require, if you require for to hear it again, they've got a neat little thing in these videos. It's called replay. Now, of course, if you like this stream, do give us a thumbs up and absolutely subscribe to the channel. Okay, we're going to tangle with a number of different things at this point. Okay, I still haven't figured out exactly what I'm doing this week, but I'll be working on that tonight. Okay, one of the big things, the reason I went after the finances today is because, well, we had to start somewhere. And given the situation, apparently it's a necessary little thing. Okay, but if you do require, if you just require to hear it again, hit replay. If you require more elaboration or you're having trouble piecing it together, absolutely drop me a line. We will set up a time to talk. Absolutely. Okay, my schedule can get a little screwy. There's no question there. But this information I decided to put out, it's not a question of, gee, let's turn around and say, oh, if you want more, I've got more secret information that's in the book. No, what you've got is right now you've got a verbal form. And if you desire to buy the books as they come out, you will have a physical form. But the information is still essentially the same thing. The secret to the way that I operate is that I don't hold it a secret. If I tell you I'm going to do, this is what I'm doing, it's what I'm doing. Okay. And, like I said, now that I've got finances where I desire them to be, except for the income level, okay, I'm still working on burning out what little savings I had. But I did a good job in spite of myself of getting that sorted around. Absolutely. And again, something that may apply, Adam, and does in a lot of cases. If you're making a payment, okay, and double check with your bank, absolute, or with the company you've got the debt with, double check. But my understanding is, let's say you've got a credit card bill, and it says you've got to pay this minimum amount. Now, if you pay only the minimum, they will take it. It'll take you years to clear it. But here's the funny thing. You pay the minimum amount. The first thing that happens is they take all of the money, all of the interest that they figured out, comes out of that payment, and a little itty bitty bit goes on the principal. Okay, so the theory would be, well, let's take, and I haven't done all the calculations, so again, double check the math. Double check with the company involved. But my understanding is this. Okay, you take that minimum payment. Let's say your minimum payment is $100. Okay, and they're going to take, let's say, 50% of your payment is going to go towards interest. So $50, that's usually way lower than what they take. But, okay, let's say that's what it is. This is just to throw numbers out there. They take 50% to the interest. So that $100 payment drops $50 off the bill. Okay. And then it takes the other 50 comes out of the interest. So that 100 that you paid pays off 50. Now here's the funny little kicker to it. Okay. And this is the same tool I use. Okay. It says, here's the minimum payment. Make the minimum payment. But once you've made the minimum payment, give it wait 2 or 3 days, and then pay another chunk on the same interest accruing bill, because that second payment goes straight into the principal, from my understanding. Double check the information. Okay. But if you think about that, you take that the 50 and the $100, 50 goes to the interest, 50 goes to the bill. You take another $100 and you put it on, and that 100 comes off the bill, off the principal, meaning off the big amount that you owe. Okay, this is just one of those funny little techniques that I've been working with, and it's worked like an absolute charm. Yes, I've got a couple of $100 on my credit card bill, but it's funny. I got unemployed, and I had one credit card company grant me a credit card, a no-fee credit card yet. And that's the other thing with credit cards. Look for ones that have no fee, no annual fee at all. The thing with making a credit card work, and this works out kind of neat. Let's say this again is something I personally do. So this isn't just a gamble. Okay. I had, what was it? Let's work with actual numbers, shall we? 2, 5. Okay. Now, I had $800 in utility bills. Okay. Yeah, I was behind in a couple of them because, me and time. Okay. But the neat part about it, I had $800 in utility bills and a balance on my credit card. So what did I turn around and do? I didn't put the $800 on my utility bills. I took the credit card, paid the utility bills with the credit card, then turned around and put the $800 on the credit card. Net result, the payment for the credit card was covered and the utility bills, and I was out of the woods. I do this every month. My utility bill gets paid by the credit card, then I pay the credit card. But I will tell you, I have not got any of it, aside from my rent and my car payment. Nothing is on automatic payment, because I have much better control over what my finances are doing by handling it directly. These are just some of the things that I look at. But the real kicker to it is, the more you communicate with the people in your household about your goals, about the things you're aiming for, the better off you're going to be. Because with everybody on board, okay, you can attain your goals so much more readily. And I will tell you, it does eliminate a lot of the concerns that you've got. Okay, it eliminates a lot of the stress and enables you to buy those funny little trinkets. Okay. And something I've already committed to this for myself. When I go to the restaurant that I basically live at, I've cut way back on the amount that I'm spending. Okay, primarily because I don't go there 5 days a week anymore. Okay, they're only open 5 days. That's why I quit going on the other two. Actually, in all fairness, I think they're open 6 days, but one of them gets interfered with because I'm gaming. But what I am doing, and I won't show you the receipt, but what I'm going to do the next time I go to this restaurant, yes, I'm going to have my bill, but I'm going to pick somebody in there, and I'm just going to pay their bill. And you may be going, well, why in tarnation would you do that? Karmic law. Energy out, energy in. Money won't do you a bit of good stuck in your sock drawer. Okay. It won't make you feel better. It provides really noisy pillow stuffing. And yes, I've tried putting money in a pillow. And I'll tell you, if you bundle it in bundles of 100, then your pillow's lumpy. If you don't, it makes way too much noise. And I'll tell you, if you're silly enough to put solid coin into a bag and then try and sleep on it, odds are you're going to be in pain the next morning. Although it is interesting. Okay, but the real catch to all of this is you figure out exactly what you owe. Get a list together of everything you owe. Okay, whether it's day-to-day life. Yeah, exactly, Adam. But you gotta think, in all fairness, people keep saying, you gotta cut back on the oil production. Not really. You gotta remember, plastic is oil-based, meaning, at least in Canada, we have our cash is built on the oil industry. Our computers are built there. Half of our food is built there, which is really disgusting when you think about it. Okay. And of course, your clothing. And, let's face it, these are kind of necessary for me. I don't know about for you. Okay. But, again, talking to each other, communicating with each other, sharing extra ideas, like what I believe it was Joe that came up with the idea when we're looking at the bills. Take care of your life end expenses. The other thing I will tell you about that side of it, and it's just personal opinion. When I go and get my will set up, and yes, I know I got to go and get it done because sooner or later I'm going to die and not come back this lifetime. God knows I've done more runs at it than the rest of my family ever did. My dad made 9 runs at passing away where they had to restart his heart. 9 times. Okay. The 10th one killed him. Okay. I've already had 10 that I came back. So I'm already winning there. It's a sick test. It's a real sick game. My dad died on the operating table. They tagged him. He woke up. My brother died on the operating table. They tagged him, shipped him to the hall, and he woke up. I died on the table. They tagged me and shipped me to the morgue, and I woke up. I will tell you, I hope none of my kids get closer to being buried than I did. Fortunately, I was on a table when I woke up. Yeah, that's a twisted little piece of trivia for you. But the reason I say everything is connected is because when you take a look at the way your life is running, when you take a look at what you're going through financially, stress-wise, there's a couple of things that happen when you discuss it with the people in your household. Number one, you've got somebody to help share that worry with. That other half will be able to understand a little bit more readily why you can't afford to do things. The kids, if you sit them down and go, this is the state our finances are in. Okay. All of a sudden, they've got the tool available to say, this is why we can't go out to the movie every week. For me, it was confusing. In all fairness, Joe, I woke up in the morgue. Now, understand, I grew up on a military base. So I woke up and I had a sheet over my head. Well, first thing I did was I went and pushed the sheet over and then sat up. I'm looking around. There's 30 or 40 other beds. And they're about 3/4 of them were full. Now, I didn't do a head count. Okay. But I looked at this and went, oh, okay. And I swung my feet off the bed and I hopped off. Now, understand, I was only 5 years old. So the first thing that hit my mind when I hit the floor was, I'm like, wow, that was a long drop from the bed. And understand, I grew up sleeping, in 5 years old, I was on the bottom bunk. But I'm like, that was a long drop to the bed, to the floor. And then I looked, and here's this guy laid out. He's wearing a smock, a lab coat. And he's got, and he's laid out on the floor. And I'm like, why, pray tell, didn't you pick one of the empty beds? Or, at least take your coat off before going to sleep. So I looked at this and went, Oh, that's a little different. So I turned around, I looked over, and over here there's a swinging door. So I walked over there, I went, I'm leaving. And I trotted off. Now I'm 5 years old. I'm wearing a hospital gown with my back end holding it, hanging out. So I pushed the door open, looked to my left, and down that hall it's all black. It's just completely dark. All the lights are off. Down there all the lights are off. Presumably everybody's home. Up here all the lights are on and apparently nobody's home. But I look down, it's all black there. I'm not going that way. Turn to the right, and up here, there's a ramp leading up. So I'm going, that's where I'm heading. I think that's kind of like choosing, am I going to go to hell or am I going to go to heaven? I don't know. But I walked up, pushed the door open. There's a guy sitting there's a military chap sitting on a stool. And he looks at me coming out of the morgue. And he pulls his feet in as I'm walking by him. He didn't say a word. He just looked at me. And this blonde lady leans out of this little room, leans out through the window to look at me as I go trundling off up the hallway. Neither of them said anything. They just looked at me really weird. Okay, and you could feel that they were just stunned. They didn't know what to say. So I walk into the lobby. I walked into the lobby. And here's Mom and Dad wrapped in each other's arms. They're standing up, but they're in each other's arms. Both of them are in tears. And I hear the doctor clear as a bell. He goes, I'm sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Andrews, we lost him. Well, I'm 5 years old. I don't know what's going on. So I walked up and tugged on Dad's pant leg. He looks down at me, and of course, he's absolutely stunned. I looked at him and I says, who did you lose? That moment, they stopped calling me by my first name, which is Ronald, and they started calling me Keith. Right then and there. Now, Dad did confirm this whole event on his deathbed. Okay. But bearing in mind it happened on a military base, good luck finding the proof. Okay. I'm just not bothering to look at it. I figure my dad confessed it on his deathbed. Why go looking for any more? But, I sat with that for years. And then I got thinking about it just last year, actually. It sounds funny when you think about it from that standpoint, but it gets to be absolutely hilarious when you put two and two together. In late 1966, early 1967, the original Dawn of the Dead came out. And I'm sure some of you guys remember that. Okay. My shall we say, my rebirth. And in my case, I was born again. No, I'm not a born again Christian. Sorry, that didn't work that well. But at approximately 4:14 p.m. PST, I walked out of the morgue in 1968. The whole concept of the zombie apocalypse was right in the beginning of its heyday. It was in full swing, which may explain why when somebody in the morgue, the morticians are trained to handle the people that hiccup, burp, twitch, occasionally sit up. They are not trained to handle people getting up and walking out. Which might explain why he passed out and hit the floor. There we go. Thank you so much, Joe. You know me and names. But yeah, Night of the Living Dead, it was great. Most people go, I want to be a movie star and I want to play in an epic. I lived in the epic. Except I wasn't walking around going, brains, brains. Although I am still, at this point, looking at a lot of the people today going, brains, brains. Where are they? The number of people that are doing absolutely dipstick things is amazing. But for me, it was this is just another day in the life or a day in the new life. I'm not sure which. But hopefully that answers what it was like to walk out of the morgue. I left a lot of good friends behind. Bear in mind, I'm a working medium. You get trapped in the morgue, and it's amazing how many people. I was lucky I got put on a table, not in a drawer. I don't think I'd have been happy if I'd have been locked in a drawer. Wasn't entirely happy when I walked out of the morgue, but guys, we are hitting the 2-hour mark. That's a really twisted way of ending things. But hey, what the heck? I will figure it out tonight, okay, for tomorrow. And again, I've got this family thing that I've got to deal with for my son. So I will, I'm hoping to make it back in tomorrow. If not, you'll understand why, and then it'll be Wednesday. Unless I die again. Which, I don't write that off as an option. But that being said, guys, thanks so much for joining me. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me. I will be getting this information into solid form ASAP. It's one of the many books I'm working on. Okay. But I will be back. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other. And for pity's sakes, stay positive.